The dinner party had been going smoothly until that moment. 8 of us sat around the mahogany table in Derek and Amanda's dining room, the remains of a perfectly roasted chicken scattered across serving platters, wine glasses catching the candlelight. Laughter filled the air as old stories circulated among friends who'd known each other for years. I should have seen it coming. My wife had been drinking more than usual, her cheeks flushed, her laughter a bit too loud. We'd been married for 6 years, together for 8, and I knew her tells. But I was relaxed, enjoying the evening, my guard down among people I considered close friends. "Oh, you know how men are," Amanda was saying, rolling her eyes affectionately at Derek. "They all think they're such experts in the bedroom." The women laughed knowingly while we men shifted uncomfortably, smiling but wary. This was dangerous territory at a dinner party. "Seriously though," my wife chimed in, leaning forward conspiratorially, "size isn't everything." She paused for effect, and I felt a cold prickle at the back of my neck. "But it doesn't hurt either." The table went quiet for a beat. She had everyone's attention now. "My ex," she continued, and my stomach dropped. "Now he was," she held her hands apart in an exaggerated gesture. "Let's just say my current husband has other qualities." The silence that followed was deafening. Then nervous laughter erupted from some of the wives while the men studied their wine glasses intently. Derek coughed. Amanda's eyes went wide, darting between my wife and me. I felt the heat rising to my face, but not from embarrassment. It was something colder, more calculated. I took a slow sip of my wine, buying myself a moment. Everyone was watching me now, waiting to see how I'd react to being humiliated in front of our closest friends. My wife was still smiling, pleased with her joke, not yet realizing she'd crossed a line. Or maybe she knew and didn't care. Maybe this was payback for some perceived slight I wasn't even aware of. We'd been arguing more lately, little tensions building up like pressure in a sealed container. "That's an interesting thing to bring up," I said quietly, setting down my glass with deliberate care. My voice was calm, almost casual, but there was an edge to it that made my wife's smile falter slightly. "Oh, come on," she said, laughing it off. "It's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." "Is it?" I met her eyes across the table. "Because I'm just wondering, does everyone here know about your ex? About why that relationship really ended?" Her face went pale. The smile froze on her lips. "I mean, if we're sharing intimate details about our past relationships," I continued, my tone still conversational, "maybe our friends would be interested in the whole story. Not just the parts you find amusing." "Stop," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But I was done stopping. Done being the understanding husband. Done swallowing my pride while she took shots at my expense. "What's he talking about?" Amanda asked, leaning forward with the kind of curiosity that can't be hidden, even when politeness demands it. My wife's eyes were locked on mine now, pleading silently. But she'd started this game in front of witnesses, and now we were going to finish it. "Nothing," she said quickly. "He's just trying to change the subject because he's embarrassed." "Am I?" I picked up my wine glass again, swirling the dark liquid. "See, the thing is, she told me all about her ex when we first started dating. Very honest, very forthcoming. Or so I thought." The table was riveted now. Derek had stopped pretending to be interested in his phone. Amanda had her hand on her chin, watching us like we were a Netflix drama. The other couples had gone completely still. My wife stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "I think we should go." "We just got here," I said calmly. "Sit down. You wanted to tell jokes about our relationship in front of our friends. Let's keep going." My wife remained standing, her hands gripping the back of her chair so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The warm, jovial atmosphere of the dinner party had evaporated completely, replaced by the kind of tension that makes people wish they were anywhere else. "Sweetheart," she said, her voice strained with false sweetness, "you're being ridiculous. It was just a harmless joke." "Was it?" I leaned back in my chair, appearing relaxed even though my heart was pounding. "Because from where I'm sitting, you just compared me unfavorably to your ex-boyfriend in front of everyone we know. That doesn't feel particularly harmless." Jesus, I didn't mean anything by it, she protested, looking around the table for support. You guys know how it is. We all joke around about this stuff. But no one came to her defense. The other women looked uncomfortable, and Amanda actually shook her head slightly. There was joking with your partner, and then there was what my wife had just done. Here's the thing about jokes, I said, taking another sip of wine. They're supposed to be funny. They're not supposed to be designed to humiliate your spouse in front of a room full of people. So since you opened this door, let me walk through it with you. Don't, she warned, her voice dropping. I'm serious. So am I. I set down my glass and folded my hands on the table. You all know she dated someone before me, right? Guy named Ryan. She's mentioned him before, always in that casual way people reference their exes. Nice guy, didn't work out, everybody moved on. My wife's breathing had become shallow. She knew exactly where this was going. What she didn't tell you, I continued, is why it didn't work out. See, I only found out the real story about 3 years into our marriage. We were having drinks with some of her old college friends, and it slipped out in conversation. One of them made a comment about Ryan, and my wife changed the subject real quick. But I noticed. So later that night, I asked her about it. Stop it, my wife hissed. This isn't the same thing. Isn't it? You wanted to share intimate details about our relationship. I'm just providing context. I looked around the table. Turns out, her ex, the one she just compared me to, had a little problem with fidelity. Not a small problem. A big one. Amanda gasped softly. The others shifted in their seats. He cheated on her, I said bluntly. Multiple times. With multiple women. And she stayed with him for 2 years, taking him back again and again, because, well, I'm guessing it's because of what she just joked about. The physical aspect of their relationship must have been good enough to overlook the lying, the betrayal, the complete lack of respect. My wife's face had gone from pale to bright red. Tears were forming in her eyes, but I felt no satisfaction in that. Just a cold emptiness where my affection for her used to be. That's not fair, she said, her voice breaking. You're twisting it. Am I? Did he not cheat on you repeatedly? Did you not stay with him despite knowing he was sleeping with other women? I kept my voice level, stating facts without embellishment. Because that's what you told me when I asked. You said you knew it was wrong, but you couldn't seem to leave him. Derek cleared his throat. Maybe we should. No, I interrupted. She wanted to have this conversation in public. We're having it. I turned back to my wife. What ended it wasn't that you finally found your self-respect. It was that he left you. He found someone else he liked better, and he dumped you. You were devastated. Took you months to get over it. You bastard, she whispered. Maybe, I acknowledged. But at least I'm a faithful bastard. At least I've never humiliated you in front of our friends for a cheap laugh. At least when I made vows to you, I kept them. The silence that followed was absolute. No one seemed to know where to look. Amanda had her hand over her mouth. Derek was staring down at his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. So yes, I continued, maybe her ex had certain physical attributes that I lack. But you know what I have that he didn't? Loyalty. Respect. The basic human decency not to betray someone who trusts me. And apparently, that matters a lot less to my wife than she led me to believe. My wife grabbed her purse from the back of her chair. I'm leaving. Probably for the best, I said. I'll get an Uber home later. She stormed out without another word, leaving the door open behind her. The sound of my wife's car starting and then peeling out of the driveway seemed impossibly loud in the silence that followed. I sat at the table, my wine glass in hand, trying to process what had just happened. Part of me couldn't believe I'd done it, that I'd actually exposed her like that. But another part of me felt something like relief, as if a poison had been lanced from a wound. Amanda was the first to speak. I'm going to get dessert, she said weakly, standing up and practically fleeing to the kitchen. Derek rubbed his face with both hands. Man, that was... I know, I said. I'm sorry. This was supposed to be a nice evening. Don't apologize, Sarah, one of the other wives said firmly. What she did was completely out of line. I don't care how much wine she'd had. Her husband, Tom, nodded in agreement. That was brutal to watch. I can't imagine doing that to Sarah, even as a joke. It wasn't a joke, I said quietly, finally admitting what I'd known the moment she said it. It was a weapon. We've been fighting a lot lately. Nothing major, just the usual married stuff. Money, housework, how we spend our time. But I guess it's been building more than I realized. Derek leaned forward. Has she said stuff like that before? In private? Not about him specifically. But she's made comments. Little digs about my appearance, my salary, my hobbies. Things that feel like jokes in the moment but sting later. I set down my glass, afraid I'd break it with how tightly I was gripping the stem. I guess I always thought it was just her way of being funny. But tonight, in front of everyone. It was deliberate, Sarah finished for me. She meant to hurt you. Amanda returned with a chocolate cake, though no one seemed particularly hungry anymore. She cut slices anyway, the mundane task giving her something to do with her hands. Can I ask you something? She said carefully, sliding a plate in front of me. The stuff about her ex, about him cheating, was it true? All of it. Every word, I confirmed. She told me about it during a vulnerable moment early in our marriage. She was crying, talking about how she'd never let herself be treated that way again, how I was different, how I made her feel valued and safe. I laughed bitterly. I felt honored, you know? Like I'd rescued her from something terrible. Turns out maybe she's been comparing me to him this whole time, and I've been coming up short. That's not your fault, Tom interjected. You can't control what someone else feels or thinks. Can't I, though? I looked around the table at these people I'd known for years. I mean, what if I haven't been enough? What if she's right to miss him, despite everything he did? What if being faithful and kind isn't actually enough to make someone happy? Stop, Derek said forcefully. Don't do that to yourself. She's the one who screwed up here, not you. She humiliated you publicly, violated your trust, and compared you to someone who treated her like garbage. This isn't about you being inadequate. This is about her being cruel. Amanda sat down heavily. I have to say, I always thought you two were solid. She talks about you with such affection usually. What changed? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe nothing changed. Maybe this is who she's always been, and I just didn't want to see it. Or maybe she's been unhappy for longer than I realized, and tonight was when it finally came out. We sat in uncomfortable silence, picking at our cake. The dinner party had become an impromptu therapy session, though I supposed it was better than everyone rushing out and leaving me alone with my thoughts. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. How could you do that to me? I stared at the message in disbelief. After everything that had happened, she was making herself the victim. I typed back, how could you do that to me first? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, it was a joke. You exposed my private history to humiliate me. You exposed our private life to humiliate me, I responded. In front of the same people. Don't pretend this is different. No response this time. Sarah, who could see my face, asked gently, is she sorry? No, I said, showing them the messages. She's angry that I retaliated. Of course she is, Sarah said, shaking her head. She thought she could take a shot at you and you just sit there and take it like a good little husband. You calling her out wasn't part of her plan. What are you going to do? Amanda asked. I looked at my phone, at the lack of further messages, at the evidence that my wife was more concerned with her own embarrassment than with the damage she'd caused to our relationship. Honestly, I said, I have no idea. I stayed at Derek and Amanda's until nearly midnight. After the initial shock wore off, the conversation shifted to safer topics: work, sports, upcoming vacations. But there was an elephant in the room that no one could quite ignore, and eventually, the other couples made their excuses and left, offering me sympathetic looks and awkward shoulder pats on their way out. "You can stay here tonight if you want," Derek offered as we cleared the table. "We've got the guest room made up." I considered it. The thought of going home and facing whatever waited there was exhausting. But I couldn't hide forever. "Thanks, but I should go back. We need to talk about this, and putting it off isn't going to make it easier." Amanda hugged me at the door. "For what it's worth, you didn't do anything wrong tonight. She started it, and you just refused to be her punching bag. That takes courage." I wasn't sure if it was courage or just exhaustion with being treated like I didn't matter. Either way, I called an Uber and headed home. The house was dark when I arrived except for a single light in the bedroom. I found my wife sitting on the bed still fully dressed, her makeup smeared from crying, her phone clutched in her hand. "We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me. "I can't believe you told them about Ryan," she said immediately. "That was private. That was my past, my pain, and you just threw it out there to win an argument." "To win an argument?" I repeated slowly, feeling my temper rise again. "Is that what you think happened? That I was trying to win? What else would you call it? You wanted to hurt me because I hurt you, so you dragged out the most humiliating period of my life and displayed it for everyone to see." I sat down in the chair across from the bed, maintaining some distance between us. "Let me ask you something. When you made that joke about your ex being bigger, did you think about how that would make me feel?" She looked away. "It wasn't supposed to be a big deal." "That's not what I asked. Did you think about how it would make me feel to be compared to your ex-boyfriend, the same guy who cheated on you repeatedly, in front of all our friends? Did you consider, even for a second, that maybe I wouldn't find that funny?" I'd been drinking. People say stupid things when they drink. "No," I said firmly. "Alcohol doesn't create thoughts, it just removes the filter. You've been thinking that, probably for a while. The wine just made you careless enough to say it out loud." She wiped her eyes, smudging her mascara further. "So what, now you're a mind reader?" "I'm your husband. Or at least, I thought I was. But a husband is supposed to be your partner, someone you build up, not someone you tear down for entertainment. And a husband is supposed to protect his wife's secrets, not weaponize them when he's angry." "You're right," I acknowledged, and she looked up in surprise. "What I did was cruel. I exposed something you told me in confidence, and I did it to hurt you the way you hurt me. It wasn't my finest moment." "Then why did you do it?" I thought about that question carefully. "Because I wanted you to understand. I wanted you to feel what it's like when someone you trust uses your vulnerabilities against you. And I wanted everyone who witnessed your joke to know the full context, that the man you were holding up as some kind of standard treated you worse than I ever would." She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller. "Do you really think I've been comparing you to him? Haven't you?" I countered. "Be honest. With yourself, if not with me." She pulled her knees up to her chest, wrapping her arms around them, a defensive posture I recognized from our worst fights. "Sometimes," she admitted quietly. "Not all the time. Not even most of the time. But sometimes when we're fighting, or when I'm frustrated with something about our life, I remember what it felt like with him. The excitement, the passion, even the drama." "The cheating?" I asked bitterly. "No, not that. Never that. But everything else. It was intense. Every moment felt like it mattered. With us, it's stable and safe and boring," I supplied. "Comfortable," she corrected. "But yeah, sometimes boring. And I know that's terrible. I know I should be grateful for stability after what I went through. But there are days when I miss feeling that alive." I absorbed this, feeling something crack inside my chest. "So tonight, when you humiliated me, was that you trying to inject some drama? Make things more exciting?" "No. God, no. I wasn't thinking. It popped into my head and came out of my mouth before I could stop it. After years of you thinking it but not saying it." She didn't deny it. I stood up, suddenly too restless to sit. Here's what I don't understand. You chose me. You married me knowing exactly who I am. I never pretended to be someone I wasn't. I didn't promise you excitement or drama or whatever it is you got from him. I promised you loyalty, respect, and partnership. And I've delivered on that every single day for 8 years. I know. But apparently that's not enough, I continued. Apparently, being faithful and kind and building a stable life together is less valuable than whatever rush you got from dating someone who treated you like you were disposable. That's not fair. Isn't it? I turned to face her. You literally made a joke tonight about preferring his physical attributes over my emotional ones. You can dress it up however you want, but that's what you said. That's what you feel. She buried her face in her hands. I don't know what I feel anymore. And there it was, the truth neither of us had wanted to admit. Our marriage wasn't just damaged by tonight's incident. Tonight had simply revealed cracks that had been forming for much longer. I'm going to sleep in the guest room, I said quietly. Don't, she said. Please. We can work through this. Can we? I asked. Because I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure I want to spend the rest of my life being compared to a man who treated you terribly and found wanting because I don't provide enough drama. I left before she could respond, closing the door on her tears and her protests. In the guest room, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how we'd gotten here and whether there was any way back. I woke to the smell of coffee and found my wife in the kitchen, still wearing yesterday's clothes, looking like she hadn't slept at all. 2 mugs sat on the counter, steam rising from them. A peace offering. Can we talk? She asked. Really talk, not just fight. I sat at the kitchen table, accepting the coffee she slid across to me. The morning light was harsh, illuminating every tired line on both our faces. I've been up all night thinking, she began, sitting across from me. And I need to say some things. Can you just listen until I'm done? I nodded. You were right last night. About almost everything. I did think about Ryan when I made that joke. Not consciously, but he was there in my head, and some part of me wanted to hurt you. She took a shaky breath. I've been angry at you, and I didn't even fully realize it until now. Angry about what? About how easy this is for you, she said. About how you seem perfectly content with our life exactly as it is, while I feel like I'm suffocating sometimes. You come home, we eat dinner, we watch TV, we go to bed. Weekends we do chores and see friends and run errands. It's the same routine over and over, and you never seem to want anything more. What more is there? I asked, genuinely confused. We have a good life. We're financially stable, we have friends, we're healthy. What's missing? Adventure, she said. Growth. Change. Risk. She saw my expression and held up a hand. I'm not talking about drama with a capital D. I'm not saying I want you to cheat on me or treat me badly. But sometimes I feel like we're not really living. We're just existing in this comfortable bubble, and it scares me that this is all there is until we die. I sipped my coffee, trying to understand. Why didn't you tell me this before? Instead of letting it build up until you're making jokes about your ex at dinner parties. Because I felt guilty about it, she admitted. You're a good husband. You're kind and reliable, and you've never given me a reason to complain. How do I tell you that I'm bored without sounding like a terrible person? How do I say I want more when what we have is already good? By using your words instead of emotional warfare, I said bluntly. What you did last night wasn't about boredom. It was designed to humiliate me. Whether you want to admit it or not, some part of you wanted to punish me. She was crying now, silent tears running down her cheeks. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was cruel and unfair, and you didn't deserve it. But you meant it, I pressed. The comparison. You do think about him, about what you had with him, and you wish some element of that was present in what we have. The passion, she said quietly. The feeling that every moment mattered. The intensity. But not the pain. Never the pain. And definitely not the cheating. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I don't want him back. I don't even want someone like him. I want us, but a version of us that feels more alive. I set down my coffee mug carefully. Here's what I heard last night, both at the dinner party and from what you've said this morning. I'm not enough for you. I'm safe and boring, and while you appreciate that intellectually, emotionally you're comparing me to a man who made you feel things I apparently don't. That's not. Let me finish, I said, echoing her words from earlier. What you exposed last night wasn't just my inadequacy in your eyes. You showed me that I've been in a marriage where my wife has been quietly disappointed in me for who knows how long. And that's not something I can fix by being more exciting or spontaneous. That's a fundamental disconnect in what we want from life. So what are you saying? You want a divorce? The word hung between us like a blade. I hadn't been thinking it, not consciously, but now that it was out there, I had to examine it honestly. I don't know, I said finally. I don't want one. But I also don't want to spend the next 40 years with someone who's settling for me. Who's wishing I was more like the guy who broke her heart. I'm not settling. Aren't you? I met her eyes. You just told me you feel like you're suffocating in our life. That I'm too content and you want more. That's literally the definition of settling. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug like it could anchor her. What if we tried to fix it? What if we both made changes? What changes? Should I start cheating on you to make things more exciting? Should I become unreliable and dramatic so you feel that rush you're missing? Don't be ridiculous. Then what? I demanded. Because I'm not going to fundamentally change who I am to meet some standards set by a man who treated you like garbage. And you shouldn't want me to. We sat in silence. Through the window, I could see our neighbors walking their dog, living their ordinary Saturday morning lives, oblivious to the fact that our marriage was crumbling in the kitchen across the street. I think, my wife said slowly, that we need help. Professional help. Because I don't want to lose you, but I also can't pretend last night didn't happen. We both said and did things that can't be unsaid or undone. She was right. The marriage we'd had before last night was gone. Whether we could build something new from the wreckage was an open question. I'll go to counseling, I said. But I need you to understand something. What you did last night broke my trust. Not just in you, but in us. And trust is a lot harder to rebuild than excitement is to create. I know. And I need to know that you actually want to be here. Not because it's comfortable or safe or because divorcing would be hard. But because you want me, specifically me, not some idealized version that's half me and half your ex. I do, she said. Want you. The real you. I need to learn how to appreciate what we have instead of fixating on what we don't. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was a start. Okay, I said. We'll try. But here's my condition. No more jokes at my expense. No more comparisons. No more using our relationship as ammunition when you're drunk and angry. If you have a problem with me or our life, you come to me directly. Like an adult. Like a partner. I can do that, she said. I will do that. And one more thing, I added. You need to tell Derek and Amanda that you're sorry. Not for getting exposed, but for putting everyone in that position in the first place. Because they're our friends, and what you did affected them too. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'll text them today. We sat there a while longer, drinking our coffee as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Neither of us knew if this was the beginning of healing or just a temporary truce before the final battle. But we were still sitting at the same table, still talking, still trying. And for now, in the harsh light of that Saturday morning, it would have to be enough.